Okay, here we go. I think I'm just gonna start getting in some of the really, really dark areas, just like I did up here. So I'm gonna come into this area. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And what brush do I need? I think I can, I'm gonna go with my 0. I'm gonna get my center. I'd cleaned out my colors, so I just really needed to clean up my palette. So I'm actually gonna take my number 4 first. Let's pull over some clean blue. Every once in a while you start running out of color, or you start running out of places to put color on your palette. And then a little bit of the yellow. And let's go ahead and add a little bit more red. Okay, that's probably close to what I want. And again, I'll just go around as I need to add a color. I'll just add a color. Okay. Here we go. This area is pretty dark in here. So I think I'm just gonna wet the whole thing again. I already kind of separated it right there with a little line. And then the same for this area. It's gonna be so much easier to just use the little engraving pen to get all the little tiny hairs. That's gonna be the fun part. Well, all of it's fun, but that's going to be the really fun part. Okay, so let's pick up a little bit of this color. Definitely need some more red. Okay. Thin it out just a little bit more, otherwise I'm going to lose where those dividing lines were that I worked so hard to get put in there. Okay, so there's that little area right there. That part kind of needs to stay light. So I'm going to start over in this little section. You know what? I'm going to go to my 2-aught. And I need red. Okay, I think I'm just going to pull some of this color down. Okay, I'm going to go back up the other direction. So it stays a little lighter along this edge. Right there. Okay. I think it's easiest to just let an area dry and then I can go on to another area. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of the red and I'm going to put it over here. And a little bit of the yellow. Okay. And I think it needs more yellow. And now let's put in a little bit of the blue. I'm going to tone it down just a bit, a little tiny bit more, even more. Okay, there's this one little tiny area that I want to get in there. I really want to add those colors because it looks like something's coming from down and up, and it's very unsaturated. And then I'm going to come over and pick up just a little tiny bit of the yellow and the red. Now, just a little bit of the blue. Go right over the whole thing. And okay, now I'm going to work on this little petal. I think I kind of need to fix the outside a little bit. And then it kind of goes up. That's what it needed to look ruffly. And I didn't have it looking ruffly enough. Okay, and in fact, just got a little bit darker color on my brush, just a tiny bit, because I'm going to I need to fix the way this looks. I think it's important that those outer edges look really sharp and defined. Okay, now a little bit more of this. You know what? That needs a little bit more red in there. Actually, it needs a little bit of yellow, doesn't it? You need to tone it down a little bit. Reducing the saturation. So now it looks more gray. Okay. With a little bit of purple. Yeah, I'm going to pick up a little bit more purple in that. Okay. So pick up a little bit of red. Some water. And then this is kind of dark in that area. Okay, so let's grab a little bit more. Okay, now the shape is looking better. It's hard to get those little ruffly edges just right. Okay, I'm blending it out a little bit. There. Value. So not only does this area have to be unsaturated, it has to be a dark value at the same time. Pick up a little bit of that dried area and come right over in this spot right here, around. And I'm not even too worried about those little parts. I just wanted to get a little bit more purple in there. And you know, here's the thing. I'm just going to paint this, and you can see what I'm doing. And you can choose what you want to do. If you want to add in a lot of values and a lot of detail, you can do that. If you don't want to, you can just do one wash over. But I'll tell you one area I really love is right here. And this was almost by accident, but look how it looks papery and ruffled. I just love it. I love how that turned out. And what I really love is the way this looks like it's coming forward, and we've got the background in the back. I still am going to have to go back and fix some of my little marks, but we'll get there. Okay, let's go ahead. And I'm going to let that area dry just like let's see, how dry is that? Okay, that's good enough. Let's go back up there. Okay, I'm going to go back to my 0. I hope you keep up with me and you put a lot of effort into really building some details. So I think you're going to be so happy with this at the end. I can already see it in my mind, so I'm pretty excited. Okay. Let's take this, try to get my point. Now some water and some of the red. And water. I'm just pulling that color out. One thing I've learned over the last few years of painting is that if you do lots of layers, and if you start out in a tiny area and then blend it out, you'll stop getting that flat look. That is so hard to overcome, especially when you're using dark colors. See how I just put a little bit of that yellow on the top of it? And you'd think, it'd be like, there's no way yellow is going to darken that, but it does. Grab a little bit more. And see how it's gradually coming out into this area. So now I'm adding water. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my dark color. Actually, I am going to go to my 5-aught. The other reason why I like using the small brushes is once you mix a dark color, if you have a big brush, every time you go back into it, you're diluting the color. So when you use a small synthetic brush, you're not just picking color up. You're always, no matter what brush you're using, you're always picking color up and dropping water. So with the synthetic brushes, there's not as much water in your brush, so your colors stay a little bit darker and a little bit thicker for longer. Okay, that little edge looks much better. And just a tiny bit of water. Okay. Still had enough color on my brush to kind of come in here. I need some dry areas too, because there's a little fold right there. So this part of the petal has folded over. And I've got that very nice and dark. I'm going to pick up just a little bit more of the blue. Drop it right on top. Kind of letting it just slightly soften and blend out towards the red. Let's pick up just some blue now. And water. I want a nice soft blend. Now I'm going to take some water and drop it right in the center there. Okay, I'll wait until that dries a little bit, then I'll come back. Because I don't want to completely lose that edge. Okay, now let's get into this little tiny area. Okay, I'm going to grab my number 2. I'm going to let that sit there for a second, and then once it's sunk in, then I'll kind of wash over it so we can tone down or reduce the value of that little part that's coming out there. Okay. Okay, now a little bit more red. So remember, just grabbing, I want to have some different colors within the purples. I'm going to go back to my 0 now. Okay, now I think I can cross over. There we go. See how it's got just that little edge. Now I can, let's see, let's grab a little bit of the red, and now some water. Fix that edge right there. Let's pick up a little bit of that darker value. And I'm going to get it to look like there's veins in it, just like I've done up on the upper one. I think we need a little bit more red. And one of the reasons why I'm picking just from the red and the blue here and there is because that's already unsaturated, so the colors aren't as, that's not as bright of a purple because I added a little bit of yellow. So this helps me from getting my colors too unsaturated. I can do that just by adding the yellow. I don't want to do that right away because it's hard to get a color back up to a gorgeous brightness. Remember, saturation is the brightness or dullness of a color. That's very different from the value, which is the lightness or darkness of a color. Okay, a little bit more red. Then there's this gorgeous little dark line that's right there because that's also, it's also like all these folds are going on. Okay. Yep, so it kind of starts there and then it ends really roughly right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm not even going to worry. I'm going over where those little, the little tendrils kind of come up, the little hairs on the beard. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. So I've got my very small brush. And I am just going to make that little edge there. I think I need a little bit, I think I got that a little dark. So if that happens, just add some water. Okay, I need a lot more red in there. I'm going to pick up some more water. Okay. I think... Oh, no, I've got to wait just a little bit. I have to let that dry some more before I can make that edge. It has to be really super dry. Oh, okay, I can kind of make it a little bit. So I just took some very dry color. And then that will help make these veins. And then I'll make the little ruffles and darken it up. Okay, I'll just leave this and stop fussing with it till it dries, and then I can wash over the whole thing and kind of subtly blend all the parts together. Okay, so I'm going to put that down. All right, so that's established. how about I take my 0 and actually let's lift this little area up and get rid of it. If I need to, and I need more of kind of like almost like a warm gray, a gray that's got yellows in it, right? Okay, so that's out of there. So let's see, I'm going to pull a little bit of red over there. It's a little bit of that yellow. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is oh, you know what? I need my small brush. Okay. I need a little bit more red. So what's happening in this area is you've got the folds behind it. So these petals are called the falls right here, and these are the beards. So there's a lot of little detail going on within this little area. So I need to get this little spot in. So this, everything past this, in fact, I just better go ahead and get that in. Sometimes you just have to also get in the other parts that are connected to it. Okay. That one's going to be a little difficult. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it the size I did it because there's a lot going on behind there. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to get this petal finished. Okay, so you know what? Let's turn this. That's what I need to do. I'm struggling here trying to make the edge. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. Okay, now when I get to all that little area in there, you're probably going to hear me be quiet for a little bit because there's a lot going on under there. But I don't think I have to hit that part first. I'm just going to get this little area. Okay, now it's warmer, right? So we're seeing the yellows and the oranges. So I know I made that color, but I'm also adding yellow. Now let's add a little bit more of this color. But then we also need, I could have just added blue or I can add a little bit of purple. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of this purple. See how it immediately toned it down? And now you can feel the roundness of that edge. Okay, a little bit more. A little bit more red. Now I'm going to go to my 0. Once you've built layers and you've softened the sizing on the paper and some of the sizing is dropped down and mingled, it gets a little bit easier layer by layer. You don't have to worry that, even these staining colors are going to overstain. You're going to make a mark and then you have to switch color. Now you have a mark that's permanent on there. That's another reason why you want to go really slow. Build 2, 3, 4 layers up, however much you need. Then you can start going in right on the dry paper and adding colors, and you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about you make one little mark and then it stains. Now see, now I'm coming around. So now As I leave that area, what's happening? I'm getting more reds and purples. So now I'm going to go back. Let's see, let's grab a little bit of blue. Okay, and what's happening right here is it's getting lighter. So you're paying attention to value and saturation all at the same time. It's hard at first, but you're never going to quite understand it until you actually start really using that. Really pay attention to that. And then once you do, it just kind of clicks and you'll get it. See, now this area, okay, so here's all those beards. So I don't exactly know what I'm going to do right here, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to soften it. Right here, I don't want this perfectly hard edge. Okay, so that's a little bit soft. And let's see, now I can come in here with some red and I can pick up a little bit of that dark value. Okay, let's go back to the red. Actually, let's go back to my 5-aught while I'm here and while it's still a little damp. Okay, I'm just going to drag my brush through here. And this is where you got to start paying attention to the way these veins are. They branch. And once you get the hang of how they branch, then you can just draw them in yourself. I used to kind of need that outline almost. I used to really pay attention to where everyone went. But then as soon as I started learning exactly how these veins worked, it was a little bit easier. Okay, so now I got to figure out, this is coming down and there's a little white line. So I have to find it again because there's a little tiny bit of dark along the edge of the petal. See, like right here, how it kind of curves around. Okay, wait, let me get some more dark. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of, whoops, oh, that was too much. Whoa, 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 too much. See how I'm just pulling it this direction now, because that's how the veins are going. So they're going to go that way, and then they're going to go this way. So they're going to kind of, from this part, splay out. So they're going to go like that, and then like that. And you have to pay attention to that, or else it's not going to look right. So yeah, this is going to take me a little bit. Okay, so I need red, and I need some of that, a little bit of that blue, but I'm mostly, let's get some thick yellow over here. Let's make it like a burnt sienna. That's what I need. So very thick. Let's turn this a little bit so you can see it a little better. Whoop, yikes. Okay, so I've got the red, I've got the yellow. Okay, and now just a touch of the blue. So I'm going to come over here and I just have just a little tiny bit. Okay, and let's see what happens. Because what is burnt sienna? And where does it fall on the color wheel? Burnt sienna is just a very, very dull orange. Okay, so now I can take some of this. Aha, so that's still not dark enough. I'm going to take some of this purple that I just made. There we go. Now I've darkened it up. So I got that gorgeous dark in there, and it doesn't look dull because it's all three of the same colors, so I'm keeping harmony in my painting. Okay, and I've already kind of got these in here. I'm going to use some of that burnt sienna. No, what do I need? I need some of the red and some of this color right here. And then see up in here, then it starts getting dark. So I'm going to grab some of my burnt sienna that I made. Because what's usually the first thing you do is you want to grab for black. You think, oh, that's really dark. I want to grab black. Okay, so now what I want to do is just soften this little edge. Let me take some more of that, maybe a little bit more. And hopefully my head isn't in the way. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so we've darkened it a little bit more, and now I'm going to have white, a little tiny white edge. Okay, now I'm going to go back to, my 0. I'm going to get some red, and I'm going to soften it, and now I can come up in here with some red. So my red is not only deepening the color, so my value is adding two things, value and saturation all at the same time. But I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my color here. And then right in here, oh my gosh, it's so tiny. So I need to get some of my dark value right here. It's dark right there. And then we're going to come into a lot of dark little things right on the other side, like this, I think, is a dividing area right here. So I can already see that this is going to be dark in here, and then it's going to be light on that side, and then this is going to be dark, and then this is going to be a little bit lighter. And now we're switching in here. Now I'm going back to some cool dark values right here. And then a little bit of purple. Okay, now I'm just going to soften it. I'm just taking it easy. I'm just kind of sneaking up on that area. I'm going to grab my 5/0. No. Yeah? Is that what I want? I don't know. Okay. Remember, I'm always keeping in mind about the colors. I don't want to make them dull. Okay, so we've got that. And then, so right upon that upper area, see, I probably don't have enough, so I'm going to get my number 4, and I'm going to take this red. Now I'm going to take this yellow. Okay, so we have a nice orange. Now I'm going to come over here with the blue. And did I get it too dark? Let's see. I don't think so. I think we're good. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. You can make your own colors. Okay. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so I'm kind of going back and forth between my 5/0 and my 00. Okay. So I'm going to grab in a little bit of, is this my 5/0? Yeah. Okay, let's see here. So it kind of starts going down in here. Okay, so hopefully you can see on the other side of my brush. See how I didn't just make that whole line, just grab a dark color and then put a line in there? I'm always looking around for every little tiny color change I see, because you know what? They're in there. And that's what makes you get that beautiful photographic look, because you're really paying attention to colors and values. Okay, so then I think it comes up. This is where I got a little confused. Okay, so let me see here. So we've got that edge right there. And comes down here. Okay, and I'm going to get this dark and drop that in there. And see, I'm going to go back to this brown. Okay, got that. And then there's this little tiny doohickey thingy in there. I don't know what that is, but I do know that on the other side of here, oh boy, it's always scary because I'm always afraid that, dang it, did I put that line in the wrong place? Okay, but it's actually more of a violet. Okay. Okay, so now these colors, see how they're kind of curving around? Okay, so now I'm going to soften them. That was just to get me started. I think this whole area is super important. That's why I'm taking some time with it, because I love all the little folds and everything that's going on in there. And that, if you can keep these colors nice and saturated and not dulling them down too much, look what's already happened. Now that we're backing out a little bit and we're looking at it, you're like, oh, look at that. Those warm, this side of the color wheel colors is a complement to all the dark, cool purples. So we have two things going on here. We have value. So the dark petals, and they're cool. That dark value is very cool because it's from this side of the color wheel, right here. So we get warmer over here and we get cooler over here. So those are nice and cool. And then we have our complements, the complementary color right across on the color wheel, which is, we have purple and yellows and oranges. So the purples are down here and the oranges and yellows are up here. So because they're complements on the opposite side of the color wheel, that's what's it's going to bring each color out and make it really vibrant. Okay, so let's turn this over. In fact, I may emphasize that just a little bit more as I'm painting in this area, just to make sure I add a little bit of glow. And like once I get down in here, now I'm going to get down into the yellows. So we've got the yellow and the purple, and then we've got those blues. So you want to make sure that you keep some color changes in here. You want some of the blues because you want to see those, so that we've got two complements going on. We've got the orange and the purples, and then we've got we have a little bit of the yellows and the purples, and then we're going to have orange and blue, which is the opposite right there. Those are kind of opposite. And then at the top of the color wheel, we've got the yellow, and as it comes down, even though I have it sitting in the middle, it would sit right about here. All right, so I'm telling you this, so if you don't want your painting to look flat, you make sure that you really focus on good detail and good color changes right in this area. Okay, so that was getting really intense, so I turned it around so I could see what's happening as I'm coming down into the petal from this side. So I still need a little bit more. Here, let's zoom in a little bit again. Okay, so can you see what's going to happen right there? We're coming in with some reds. We've got those veins in there, remember? But I'm just going to add a little bit more red right in there. And I have a lovely burnt sienna there. Now, as I look at this purple, it's way too bright. So that's a very saturated color. I need to unsaturate it. I need to dull it down a little bit. Dull does not mean muddy. Muddy is what you get when you mix opaque colors. We don't get muddy in transparent colors. We want dull, so we want that unsaturated look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here now and I'm going to get my mix. I'm just going to drop a little bit in it because these are the areas that start getting gray as we come down. See how I did that? There's still a little bit of red in there and a little bit more yellow, but I actually really like that. So that's going to stay like that. The only thing I'm going to need to do, so what's happening here is I'm going to be able to take, what do I need? What do I need? I need a little bit of yellow and a little bit of this gray right here. And I want to get this petal to curve. I'm just adding a little bit of color. So now it looks bright on one side, it's dark on the other, and then it's curving around. Actually, I decided I'm just going to kind of go ahead and stay over here just for a bit. And then we have these really cool little, the stripes that are on the falls as they come down. It gets really, get these really cool, almost like tiger stripes. You can see some up in this area and along these areas right here. So make sure that you pay attention to that when we get down there. Okay. And then it comes all the way down. Okay, so now we have the basic shape of that leaf, petal. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my lines there, but I'm going to start off with a very, very watery, kind of a blue-violet color. It has to be very light, so I don't want to get too close to those little white highlights. If I lost them, I could just use my engraving pen. And now I'm coming into some purples. And then what do I have up in here? I'm going to grab some of my yellow. And I'm going to let it blend and meet with those purples. See, I'm just using my brush is just very, very light. But all along this side, it's mostly like that periwinkle blue color. And then as we get down in here, it starts getting into, which I think is close to this gray that I have over here. Maybe with a little bit more of this in there. I'm going to get a little bit more water. And maybe a little bit more purple. Blend it down. So now I've got this little pocket down here I need to pay attention to. So I'm going to take a little bit of red now. And I want to go on this side. And that helped blend it together. We're going to have some darks there. We've got some really, really good colors going on and some beautiful highlights, which is where the engraving pen is really going to come in handy. All these little areas that we've got like that. Now, earlier, what had happened was I started filming and I had an update on my microphone and I didn't realize it cut me off. So I actually just brushed over just a little bit more color right in there. And so it did dull down my little spots a little bit, but if I have to put them back in, I can put them back in. So, okay. Let's put in a little bit more yellow. And then that area we've got our yellows and we've got our red. And I can go ahead and go right over it, blending out a little bit into that dark. And there's a little tiny cool white line in there. I doubt I'm going to do good enough to keep that in there. I'll try, but it's most likely I'm going to lose that. Okay, I want to get a little bit more of this brown. There we go. That looks really good. Yeah, I can see what's going on a little bit better from this angle. I was having a harder time seeing that. And on this side, see, it kind of blends out a little bit in here. Again, I'm just going slow and little by little. Just paying attention to where all those highlights are. Okay. You can already see it starting to take shape, but now we've got this area. Now I'm going to come over on this side. A little bit more yellow over here. And I'm going to let it blend in. A little bit on that upper edge. And actually, let's get a little bit more yellow. Okay. And let's get a little bit more yellow on this side. And now let's get some red. And let's get some red right here. Okay. I feel like I got that nice fold right there too. Hopefully you're not thinking, this is absolutely crazy. Look at how long it's taking for her to do that. But this is how I paint. And if you want to know how to do it, this is how you do it. Take your time. Okay, now let's get some dark red on this brush. Okay, now I'm going to try to mimic the shape of these veins. Okay, now I need a little bit more of the darker value, and it kind of comes up. See all those subtle changes? It's just gradual instead of harsh. When you try to go into an area too dark with watercolor, I need a little bit of water on that, you're just going to get a flat line because you get in a hurry. Okay. Okay, see how I darken that even more? Which means I can go up in this area. I can get that a little bit darker. So now we've got some good values going on there. Let's wet that too. Okay. Had a little bit too much blue on my brush. Okay. See, all the veins connect. They just make these neat little pockets, almost. And see, then they're all coming up right in here. So I'm going to curve that one, and then I'm going to V it off, curve it back around. So if you can get this little area, this is where your painting's going to shine. Okay, now the veins aren't as pronounced. And now they're going to start turning, right? They're going to start going this direction now. Down. And connecting. It's almost like they connect in a teardrop pattern. And I see a little bit of yellow right up in these areas. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I didn't, oh gosh, oh no. Okay, let me go. I don't know why that line, why I've got that there, but I will tell you this. I need a little bit of yellow in this area. And it's coming down in here. I can see it, and you can too if you start training your eyes to see that. So I'm going to go a little bit more on the yellow, back up in this area, and look at that beautiful glow that creates. I am exaggerating it a little bit, but it's a painting. You're supposed to do a little bit of that as you paint. So like right here, let's go back over here. So we're upping that saturation just a little bit. And okay. And then over on that side too, let's add a little bit more in here. And then there's a little bit of yellow on that side. And as we come down, okay. So I'm going to stop and make sure everything is dry. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. We're at about 50 minutes or so. Okay, it may seem like we didn't get a whole lot done, but I promise you this is going to pay off in the long run. And we're almost getting to the point where we can finish the falls and move into this area, and then we'll be down to the buds in the stem, and it's all going to be worth it. So I hope you stick with me and you check out the next tutorial as soon as I get that up.